Testing 1 2 3. Testing. Okay, thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الضيوف الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بداية يسعدنا أن نتقدم لسمو الشيخ خالد بن حمد آل خليفة النائب الأول لرئيس المجلس الأعلى للشباب والرياضة، رئيس الهيئة العامة للرياضة، رئيس اللجنة الأولمبية البحرينية، بجزيل الشكر والامتنان على توجيهه ورعايته لإقامة قمة الرياضة البحرينية، مما يعكس حرص واهتمام سموه بدعم مختلف المبادرات الهادفة إلى دعم المنظومة الرياضية والانتقال بها إلى مرحلة الصناعة والاحتراف، مما يسهم في تحقيق المزيد من المنجزات لمملكة البحرين في هذا الصعيد. كما أرحب بجميع الضيوف والمشاركين في هذه القمة، والتي تنظمها الهيئة العامة للرياضة بالتعاون مع مبادرات خالد بن حمد آل خليفة، شاكرين لهم إسهاماتهم في دعم جميع الجهات والاتحادات والأندية الرياضية من أجل بناء المستقبل الرياضي في مملكة البحرين. مؤخراً شهدت الرياضة العالمية تطوراً ملحوظاً إلى جانب تطور الأنظمة الذكية والحلول الرقمية، ولطالما كانت مملكة البحرين من الدول المبادرة بتبني واعتماد أنظمة ذكية وأساليب مبتكرة وحلول استراتيجية في جميع المجالات. وقد حان الوقت إلى استهداف هذه الأنظمة والاستراتيجيات لتكون جزءاً لا يتجزأ من منشآتنا الرياضية لتحقيق الفائدة المرجوة. ومن خلال محور الذكاء الاصطناعي في الرياضة نهدف إلى تطوير الروابط العلمية والعملية بين المنشآت الرياضية ومتطلبات الابتكار من جهة، وتطبيقات الذكاء الاصطناعي من جهة أخرى. ليتفضل الدكتور جاسم حاجي رئيس المجموعة العالمية للذكاء الاصطناعي لإلقاء كلمته في هذه المناسبة.
Hello. السلام عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني. صدق الله العظيم. مرحبا فيكم في مؤتمرنا الثاني للذكاء الاصطناعي في الرياضة. العام الماضي تشرفنا ايضا تحت راية سمو الشيخ خالد بن حمد آل خليفة حفظه الله، ليكون لنا أول مؤتمر في الشرق الأوسط والدول العربية في الذكاء الاصطناعي في الرياضة. وفي حد ذاته كان إنجاز ومبادرة وليس غريبة على صاحب السمو الشيخ خالد بن حمد آل خليفة، لأنه دائما هو عند الرياضة من الاستبيان، طريقة التحاليل والإنتاجية، وأيضا تنبؤ بالمستقبل. نحن اليوم لما نتطور الذكاء الاصطناعي كثير إلى الأمام، احنا قاعدين نتعلم من الذكاء الاصطناعي، فبدنا احنا نكون المتابعين للذكاء الاصطناعي وليس الذكاء الاصطناعي لنا، لأن أساسا في فجوة كبيرة بين البشر والذكاء الاصطناعي، من ناحية السرعة، من ناحية الدقة، من ناحية تقليل في التكلفة. فاليوم الذكاء الاصطناعي داش في كل محور، في كل جزء من العمل، والرياضة ليست بعيدة عن أمور ثانية. بالأخص في الرياضة اليوم راح نتكلم عن أدوار إدارية وأدوار رقابية وأدوار فنية. يعني اللاعبين ما نقدر نغيرهم بالذكاء الاصطناعي، ضمن هذا الشيء موجود، ولكن في فريق في فرنسا غيروا المدرب إلى مدرب آخر ما لعب كرة وليس له أي علاقة باللعب أو رياضة، وهو مجرد كان فني في جيمنج في الفوتبول، والذكاء الاصطناعي اليوم يقود فريقه وعنده 7 مباريات بدون هزيمه. فقاعدين ننتقل افرقه كبيره، بايرن ميونخ وافرقه بالاخص في امريكا، هم البدايات من هناك في الام ال اس، عندهم نفس الان لابس اتصال بين اللاعبين وبين الجهاز. طبعا الجهاز ليس جهاز اداري، ليس جهاز بمعنى التقليدي افراد قاعدين يعطون ارشادات، في تحاليل عن اللاعبين الاخرين. في كرة القدم الامريكية اللاعبين قاعدين يتحركون بخطة مضادة. طبعا التحليل هالشيء بين البشر على اساس يتنبؤون ويعملون خطط، المباراة انتهت وانهزموا، خلال ثواني بيحصل اللاعب ارشادات عن طريق تحاليل. طبعا التحاليل هني قاعدين نتكلم عن كاميرات ذكية احنا نسميهم رؤية الحوسبية، عن تحركات اللاعبين، وايضا الخطط، دراسة شاملة عن فريق المضاد. طبعا هني الفريق الفائز بيكون فريق اللي عنده أجهزة أذكى في الذكاء الاصطناعي وليس اللي عنده لاعبين أقوى. فنفس الشيء في الام بي اي وامور ثانيه. اليوم المدربين يستعينون بالمساعدين الافتراضيين. المساعد الافتراضي يعني مو بشخص قاعد عنده مساعد يعطيه الخطط، مو ماخذ له ورقه وقاعد يدون عن الحالات اللي هو يعتقد فيهم. طبعا هني قاعد نتكلم، عندي فيديو عقب شوي يمكن دقيقتين و12 ثانيه يتكلم عن البيانات، شلون كم هائل من البيانات احنا اليوم نقدر نحللهم عن الافرقه وعن حالات اللاعبين، عن الاصابات، وشلون نقدر ايضا نتنبأ باللي قادم. طبعا هني قاعدين نقارن بالاكيورسي بين البشر وبين الالات، يعني في جدا مرتفعه، ما في اي مقارنه في هالامور، لان في النهايه احنا كبشر وكاداريين او فنيين راح نقيم الاشياء على البيانات اللي عندنا، على الخبره. طبعا الخبره انتهت، نحتاج ندرب شخص اخر لكي يكون بديل. والذكاء الاصطناعي اليوم تعلم الاله انه احنا اليوم ما راح نعلم الاجهزه كيف يعملون، انما الاجهزه او الجهاز لما تعلم الاله وتعلم العميق، تعلم بشكل تلقائي مع الوقت ويطور في روحه، يعلم روحه. فهني دور البشر في البدايه احنا نسميه سوبرفايزرنج، ولا نرجع لشيء في الخوارزميات يسمونه رينفورسمنت. فالاتكال النهائي على البيانات، على كم البيانات، احنا راح نشوف 19.2 زيتا بايت من البيانات خلال 3 أعوام القادمه. هاي زيتا بايت يعني 21 صفر. فشلون ناخذ هالبيانات ونستفيد منهم؟ شلون نحللهم؟ شلون نستفيد؟ شلون نخليهم يعني اساسا في اماكن امنه؟ الحملات السبرانيه في الرياضه لا تستغربون بكره ان في هجمات سبرانيه على الافرقه على اساس ياخذون مو ياخذون لاعبينهم يشترونهم يبلغون مثل ما اللي يسوون اليوم، انما ياخذون بياناتهم، والبيانات من ثم يستفيدون منهم لكي يعملون خطط مضاده. فهذا اللي متجهين فيه، يعني سواء حددنا هاي الشيء مستقبلي بعيد المنال او ان طورنا نفسنا. فالخيار واحد من الاثنين، ان اليوم نبادر في هالاشياء ونكون من السباقين، او نكون من الدول او الهيئات اللي فرض علينا هالشيء في المستقبل وما لنا اي خيار بل ان نتابعهم ونستكشف. طبعا الاشياء احنا في البحرين الحمد لله في مركز سمو الشيخ ناصر للبحوث والتطوير في الذكاء الاصطناعي، اللي اتشرف اكون اقود الفريق في هالمركز، ان نعمل مع ترشيدات طبعا الاداره العليا على جعل البحرين مركز للذكاء الاصطناعي في عديد من الاطارات، ومن ضمنهم الرياضه، حلول داخليه، حلول عن طريق درك احتياجات في الرياضه، الانديه والرياضات لكي نروح. احنا عملنا اشياء يعني يمكن بدائيه في تنس وسباحه، فيمكن نقدر نطور في هالشيء. وايضا في نهايه المؤتمر نطلع بعض الأفكار اللي نقدر ننطلق منهم ونحدد هالشيء. اسمحوا لي بس قبل ما أنهي ناخذ جولة على فيديو باللغة الإنجليزية دقيقتين و12 ثانية. The video please, if we can display it quickly. Control. هذا اللي ما عنده ذكاء اصطناعي.
Now I'm excited to show you what we've been working on and the features we'll be introducing in our editor. Our editor is the place where you can watch and analyze your game, create and share your favorite highlights with your fans, friends, and family. These extraordinary new features are going to take your video experience to another level. Our artificial intelligence automatically goes in and creates the broadcast view like you know it from TV. Beyond marking goals and kickoffs, we're excited to announce that our AI can now detect penalty kicks, corner kicks, throw-ins, and goal kicks. On the multidimensional timeline, you can now quickly play just the highlights and easily present them to your players. We now also count these events, along with your own highlight tags, in all sports, giving you a statistical overview of the game. Until now, the data our AI has collected has been primarily to direct the camera and detect events. But with exciting new progress, our AI now tracks the players, teams, and the speed of the ball relative to the field, allowing us to provide even more advanced analysis tools. Let me take you through some of these revolutionary new features. Heat maps, a visualization of the average position of the action during the game. Heat maps show your team or the opposing team's position throughout the game. You can easily get an overview and see how your team is using the space and recognize where there's room to exploit your opponent. You can choose to see the full game or a specific period of time. Let's say you just want to see the first 10 minutes of the game. It's easy, just like that. The next new feature is something that many of you have requested, and now we're ready to deliver. The heat map that I just mentioned is based on the position of every player. With that same data, we can now create a 2D map of the players on the field. The 2D map allows coaches to view and present the game in the same way they're used to, with the players on a whiteboard before, during, or after the game.
طبعا مسكين لو يتكلم عن هيت ماب في بلده ما يدري في البحرين هيت ماب كان بيكون ملعب كامل. ف اليوم عندنا متحدثين شكرا للهيئة العامة للرياضة بالشراكة معاهم جلبناهم من دول في كوريا الجنوبية، بلجيكا، فرنسا، وأيضا جامعات مرموقة في الخليج مثل جامعة خليفة بن زايد في أبو ظبي، جامعة الملك عبد الله بجدة، ودائما في تعاون في الأمور، واحنا دائما نركز كل شهر على قطاع معين. يعني الشهر القادم عن الذكاء الاصطناعي في القضاء المستقبل لا يكون لهم أي دور، يكونوا قضاء افتراضيين لكي يحلون في البداية يمكن المخالفات البسيطة. وأيضا عملنا في البيانات الضخمة وفي البرلمانات في كثير من القطاع اللي اليوم ممكن في الصحة أيضا شلون نقدر نطبق الذكاء الاصطناعي. أنا ما بكثر أو بطول عليكم وراح نسمع للمتحدثين طبعا يكونون باللغة العربية بالإنجليزية والترجمة أعتقد متواجدة. شكرا لاستماعكم وشكرا على وجودكم معنا.
نشكر الدكتور جاسم حاجي رئيس المجموعة العالمية للذكاء الاصطناعي على الكلمة والتعاون المستمر في تنظيم مختلف البرامج الهادفة إلى ربط التكنولوجيا الحديثة بالممارسات العملية في مختلف المجالات. السادة الأفاضل، ندعو الدكتور أنتوني تشوبا باحث في جامعة لييج ببلجيكا لتقديم عرضه.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anthony Chopas. I'm a postdoc at the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology in Saudi Arabia, and also at the University of Liège in Belgium. I'm truly passionate about using technology, and especially computer vision, to understand more about the game of soccer. Now, it's truly an honor to be here with you today to present my expertise and my insight on this very interesting topic. So I've been working in this field for the past 5 years, and I've done my PhD thesis on that topic. And today we're particularly going to talk about one particular project that we developed, which is called SoccerNet. SoccerNet, as you will see, is one of the largest and most comprehensive data sets for sports analysis in the world. So let's maybe dive into this first topic. I don't know how to switch the slides exactly. Do I have something? Oh, in there. Okay, perfect. Let's see. All right, perfect. So first, we will see why we need such a data set and such a benchmark for the scientific community, but also for the industry. Then we will see how we built and released our data set, and we will take the example of SoccerNet for that. And I will give you some key features about SoccerNet and why it is the most interesting data set to work on right now, actually. Then we will see how we can actually use SoccerNet and open competitions to drive the research into what we need and what the industry needs. And finally, we will see some very exciting news about SoccerNet. So but before we dive into the subject directly, let's first see why it is such an interesting topic and why it is such a challenging topic, right? So for computers, they don't see the game the way that we do see the game, right? So for us, our eyes are very easily tracking the players, seeing like what is happening in the game. Our brain is able to understand that very easily. But for a computer, actually, what it sees is just a series of numbers that are representing 3 channels: the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel, right? So this means that the computer needs to understand what is happening in that game from that series of numbers. So it's a really challenging topic, actually, and this is why there's been a lot of research for the past decades, actually. Like the first works on soccer for like computer vision for sports have started like in the 80s, in the 90s, with just trying to detect where the humans are in the field. And now we're capable of doing much more thanks to artificial intelligence and the advances of computer vision in that field. So we will see how we can, from this series of numbers, extract some meaningful information, whether it is where are the players, what are they doing, or even a higher level of understanding, like what is happening in the game. Like, this goal was due to this player because he dribbled a few players or stuff like that. And there's a lot of very interesting applications, actually, on this topic. So the first one, for instance, is that if you want to find the next best player of your team, well, you can go to different games and just watch them and try to see like if a player would fit inside your team. But it would be much easier if you had instead one algorithm that is able to analyze directly a bunch of players, and then you can select, for instance, oh, I need one player that is very good at head strikes, right? And then you will go through the statistics and see that this player scored 5 goals on head strikes, and this is the player that you need. Another interesting application, but for the viewers this time, is that instead of having to watch the whole game because you don't have time, for instance, you can have highlights, right? And these highlights, usually, they're the same for everyone right now. But what would be interesting is that you can have personalized highlights. So let's say that you're a very big fan of Ronaldo or of Messi, and you want a highlight that specifically targets this particular player. Well, this is going to be possible thanks to artificial intelligence and computer vision. And finally, for the players themselves, we have some very interesting applications in the medical field as well. And I think we're going to have an interesting talk afterwards on that. So I'm not going to extend too much on it. But for instance, we could directly analyze the different types of head impacts that the players have encountered and then see if they need medical assistance right away or not. Now, there are tons and tons of other applications that I've listed here. So for instance, if you want to retrieve all the goals that Ronaldo did since the beginning of his career because you're writing a blog post about him or something, well, you're not going to go through all the games again. Maybe an AI can assist you with that, right? So now I'm going to talk a bit about exactly why we needed to develop SoccerNet, why we needed to develop such a benchmark for artificial intelligence in sports. Well, in the past, most of the research was done on very small and private data sets. And why is that? It's because basically, small is because building a large data set costs a lot of time and costs, therefore, a lot of money, right? And then once you have that data set that is built, you don't want to just take it and put it publicly so that everyone can use it and benefit from your work, right? So this was a big step back for the research, which could not advance very well. And I'm going to explain why. Because, like, if you're doing a very interesting method on your particular data, then if another researcher wants to do the same or improve on your feature, it will first have to build a data set same as yours, to be able to evaluate the method, to be able to just develop it. The problem with that is that it takes time, and you're not even sure that you're going to be able to reproduce the results of your fellow researcher, right? And so this prevented innovation, because you cannot build upon previous methods the way that we are able to do it right now with our dataset SoccerNet. And this is especially true for data-driven approaches. So these approaches are very, very interesting because they are the ones that provide the best results. So just in a small sentence, data-driven approaches, they take a bunch of raw data and a bunch of annotations. And then what you're trying to do is to build this algorithm in the middle that will basically say, okay, I've seen a lot of images, I've seen what I need to do, and now I'm going to do it for you. So this is, for instance, a lot of supervised deep learning methods, if you heard the term before. So these are the algorithms that work the most well right now. But as you've seen, you need the data, and you need the annotations for that. And if it is not provided, then you cannot do anything. You cannot reproduce the results, you cannot build upon them, you cannot advance research further. And this is why SoccerNet is actually very important in that field. So now we know why we need SoccerNet. Let's see a bit what we thought when we discovered that, and we said, okay, let's build a data set for computer vision in sports. Well, the first thing we did was to go to stakeholders and to actually ask them, what do you need? So we went to several of them, researchers, companies that are working actively in the sports industry, and also sports clubs, athletes, and all these kind of people. So obviously, the needs are going to be different for each of these people, right? On the research side, it's more like, okay, what kind of research question is this data set going to answer? Like, can I use the results that were provided by my new algorithm, by my new data, on other types of data and other types of tasks? Also, since we are researchers, what we care about is not actually money, but it's publications. So we need to be able to publish the data set. So this raises issues with the copyrights and all this kind of stuff. And also we need to propose a research that is innovative. We're not going to do something that everyone has already done on another sport or on another type of data, right? While on the industry side, they are more looking towards developing their knowledge about a specific topic that may help them to produce a product in the end, right? So that's the goal of companies. This also implies that we need to look at what are the market openings. So what are clubs interested in, for instance? Are they interested in helping the coach? Are they interested in providing more statistics about the player? Are they more interested into improving the experience for the viewer? And so these are actually what is going to define what we're going to put inside our benchmark and our data set. So which data are we going to use? Which kind of annotations are we going to provide? And which kind of tasks are we going to provide? So this was actually our starting point in 2018 when my colleague Silvio Giancola proposed the first version of the SOCANET dataset. And at that time, it was very complicated to get access to videos of single stream cameras. So what he did was that he chose to go with the broadcast stream. So just like the one you see on TV with all the cuts, the replays and everything. And he collected a data set of 500 games from the top leagues in Europe. So as you can see there's La Liga, Champions League, and so on. Then we needed to find a task to solve on this new data, right? So at that time, in the research community, temporal activity localization was very important. This task is basically trying to retrieve what's happening in the game and to localize that, or in any kind of video. And we adapted that for the particular game of soccer. So he annotated 3 main events, which were goal, cards, and substitutions. So in each of these broadcast videos, he annotated a single timestamp saying there's a goal happening at this moment. There's a card given to a player at this moment, and there's a player leaving the field at this moment. So in total, it's approximately 6,000 annotations that are provided in those 500 games. So it may seem like a lot, but if you think about it, it's actually 1 annotation every 7 minutes. So obviously, there's room for improvement for that. And this is actually what we've done in 2020 when we got fundings, so that was nice, that allowed us to actually annotate more important information about the game. So when we received the funds, we said, okay, what can we do with the data that we already have? What can we bring more value into this data with annotations? So obviously, the first thing that we did was to annotate a complete set of actions that are occurring during the game. So instead of having just goal, cards, and substitutions, we have annotated penalties, free kicks, direct, indirect free kicks, corners, offsides, and all kinds of actions that are typically occurring during the game. Next, we said, okay, so the task, we already proposed it in 2018. The task remained the same. It's just that we have more annotation on it. Can we propose new tasks on this data? And since it was broadcast feed, we figured out, okay, let's try to understand how the broadcast feed is constructed. So obviously, in the broadcast, you have different cuts between different cameras, where we're going to see the field from a far point of view, then we're going to see one particular player and stuff. So we annotated all these camera transitions there and characterized them. So are we seeing the field from a far away point of view? Are we seeing a particular player or stuff like that? And finally, we annotated something about the replays. So the replays, they are there to put a particular emphasis on a particular action, right? So we're going to see, for instance, one player tackling another, or the goal that has just happened, and this somehow puts importance on specific actions, right? If an action has been replayed 3 times, it means that it's probably a very important action. So we annotated that as well, and we went from 6,000 to 300,000 manual annotations on this. So to give you an idea, this is 50 times more than what we had before, right? And this was done by 30 students from the University of Liège who were paid during the summer. So during 2 months, we hired 30 students to annotate all of this. Then, in 2021, we got even more funds, which is always nice to have. And we went from, okay, now we have actions that are anchored in time, basically. We have annotations that are specific to time. Let's put information that are specific to, rather, what is inside each frame, so it's more spatial information. So we collected a data set of images that are showing the game from different point of view. And we annotated a lot of stuff, as you can see there. So for instance, all the lines in the field and the goal, all bounding boxes of players, and also the IDs of the players and who corresponds to who in different views. So this allowed us to define 5 new tasks, which were and are still very important in the field of computer vision, which are camera calibration, player detection and jersey number recognition, and re-identification across multiple views. And finally, we also received last year the long-awaited sequences of images, like of a game coming from one single camera. So this was very valuable to us because if you remove all the cuts in a video, what you're able to do is to track player for very, very long time. So you are able to follow each player during the whole game without having all these cuts. So we annotated tracking information on all these videos from the 12 games. And this is very interesting because the long-term tracking task is actually a very popular task in computer vision right now. And now this year, we've just released, like on Monday, 3 new tasks on new data as well. So the first one is ball action spotting. So as you can see here, we're interested in pass and drive events. So these events, compared to the ones of the first versions of SoccerNet, are much more dense in the game. It means that you have a lot of them. You have a lot of them, one after the other, right? Which makes it even more complicated for methods to actually perform this task. The other one, which is very new one and very trendy in the field as well right now, is called dense video captioning, which is basically, while you're watching the game, trying to describe what is happening in the game. Okay? So it would be like you making commentaries to someone who is not looking at the game right now, saying, oh, this player made a terrific cross and the ball went into the net. So this kind of task mixes computer vision and language-based model to try to come together and provide a better understanding of what is happening in the game. And the final one is based on the data from 2021 that we had, which is jersey number recognition, but in cases where most of the time the jersey is not visible. So as you can see here, for instance, we cannot see the jersey for a long time, and it's just at some moment that the player will turn and that we're going to be able to see the jersey. So this is very complicated for deep learning algorithms as well. So let's look a bit at the summary of our SoccerNet dataset right now. So let's focus on the bottom part, because I've already went through everything above. But basically, what we have is a data set that started in 2018 and is still going on right now, that has 10 different tasks that are not only interesting for soccer applications, but also for computer vision in general. We have approximately 850 hours of videos, right? This corresponds to about more than a month of you just sitting there and watching games, right? So that's really a lot of data. And we have 5.5 million annotations that are spread across those different tasks. So obviously, one question that you might be wondering is, where does the money for the annotations come from, right? We're a university, so we're not making any kind of money on it, right? And actually, so as I said in the beginning, we have different kind of stakeholders. First one, obviously, is that our universities that pay our salary in order for us to do research. So what we have to provide in the end is publications. But we also have two different types of other stakeholders, which are the government-funded research projects. So here, we proposed projects to either our government, Europe, or any kind of big organization, and tell them, okay, we want to do that because it has a research potential value, and it could be transferable to local industries, let's say. And so they're going to fund salaries for PhDs and stuff like that, but also for material that we can use, either like computation servers or money that we can use to do annotations. And finally, the companies, sometimes, they contact us and they say, okay, we need to work on that particular task, right? That is player tracking, for instance. And these companies are going to put money for us to have the annotations and work on them and provide them with a solution at the end. So we're going to come back to this slide a bit later, and we're going to complement it a bit. But right now, I want to talk about something else. So first of all, let's meet our different stakeholders here. So everyone that is in the SoccerNet team. So as you can see, it's grown to be a very big team. We started with only 3 people, and now we're 19. So from different universities, like the University of Liège, the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, we have the fundings from the FNRS, and we have a lot of companies that you might recognize if you're working in the field of sports, right? Like EVS Broadcast Equipment, who are providing live solutions, Sports Radar, we have Baidu Research, and Photovision as well. So now that we have the data, now that we have the tasks that are defined, what do we do to make people work on those tasks? Because we can work on those tasks, but we're still like 19 people. It's a small team compared to the bunch of researchers that exist worldwide, right? So what we did was that we started organizing challenges. This is by providing the data available to the public, we are able to have people work on the same tasks as us. And this is one of the strengths of research, actually, is that you have such a big pool of researchers that you're leveraging this big pool of researchers to advance rapidly on a specific topic. And the way to do that is to motivate people, and to motivate people, you organize challenges. So we already organized 2 very successful challenges in 2021 and 2022 during big scientific conferences, where we had several research papers coming from our lab, but also from the participants of the challenges. And you may recognize some of the teams that participated from last year's challenges. We had actually 70 different teams participating on all our challenges, which was a fantastic success. Now, here's a few other statistics that we have on our data set. So, as you can see, this is a pretty worldwide impact that we've had. So a lot of people downloading our data set and visiting our website from a bit everywhere in the world. We also have now a community on Discord of researchers who are working actively on SoccerNet and that are sharing among themselves the knowledge that they develop on SoccerNet, which is fantastic, obviously, from a research point of view, right? On the evaluation server, last year we received more than 600 submissions, which is a lot. And we also have a YouTube channel that you can check out, obviously, where there are videos that are related to SoccerNet as well. Now, how to motivate people to participate in our challenges? Well, that's very important, right? Because even if you're providing the challenges, it's important to actually motivate people to bring out their best solution. They need to get value out of it also, right? So obviously, the first thing is to offer a money prize. That always works. Then to help people get started with the challenge, instead of having a learning curve that is very high at the beginning, we're trying to take it slow, like so that they can easily get into the challenge. And for that, we propose several stuff. So we have the YouTube videos that are explaining what we do. We have the Discord community where they can ask questions. We do a lot of promotions on social media as well, just to get the challenge known. We have live tutorials and Q&As that we organize regularly so that people can ask questions during the challenge if they are stuck on some problem, and they can discuss them on themselves or they can discuss with us. And finally, the last thing to do is to provide clear code so that they can get started. Because in artificial intelligence, most of the time you spend it on just trying to load the data, evaluate the results, put the pipeline together and everything. And the interesting part, which is the method, is sometimes just like a very small percentage of the time you spent working. So if we provide that for people at the beginning, well, actually we're able to fasten their process into getting into those tasks. So now let's get back to the model. Now you see that our data set from the data and annotation, we can bring some tasks, we have some challenges, and we have created several values that I will come back to just after. But basically, now we need to see what the stakeholders, like at the beginning, are getting from these created values, right? So from a pure research standpoint, this is the statistics that we had from our lab. So we've had 13 research papers in top conferences and journals, over the past 4 or 5 years, and including 5 best paper awards. So obviously our universities were very happy about that, right? And we also helped our universities to get access to big actors in the industry, because with our visibility, we were able to attract big companies to work with us to fund some of our research as well, which is very interesting. Also, for universities, it's important to expand the knowledge elsewhere. So this is like the collaboration between many universities worldwide, as you've seen like for SOCONET. And the impact that we've had is that we've had hundreds of citations of our paper, which means that, yeah, the message has been spread. Now, from the industrial point of view, our partners have gotten a lot of know-how. So basically a lot of knowledge about how our tasks have helped them develop products. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to talk exactly about what product they made. This is up to them to tell you about it if they want to. But with all the available open source code that we provide and that the participants have provided, they are also able to integrate them into their pipelines, right? And finally, for companies, if you have data, you are able to train the models that have been developed on more and more data, much more data than the one that is publicly available. And so more data often means better performance, and so you have a competitive advantage over your other competitors, right? And finally, I want to get on that because this year, actually, we won a competition organized by Ithaca in Saudi Arabia for innovation in sports, which led to the creation of our own startup, which is called IA in Sports, and which is based on the technology from the action spotting part of SOCONET. So as you can see, like, this data can actually have an impact in the real world and provide value into the market. So now let me just put a very brief summary of everything we said. We have a lot of data, lots of annotations. We have 10 tasks related to computer vision in sports. We organize challenges, like also this year, and we have a lot of research outcome and industrial outcomes. Now, I want to finish this talk about what is the future of SOCONET going to look like. Well, our task will be to try to find what will be the next hype task for computer vision in sports, right? So we will put in place the data, we will organize more challenges, and we are looking to expand our team, whether it is in terms of PhD students or postdoc students or master students working on the topic, but also to grow our influence worldwide so that we can reach other types of markets and stuff. So let me give you just a few examples of what we could do Not saying we will do that, but these are some very interesting leads. So for instance, for the viewer, trying to have a 3D reconstruction of what is happening in the game, so that we are able to provide the viewer with a much better experience overall that it's able to see. So this is a paper from 2019 that is not from our group, but that is very impressive, where they try to reconstruct a 3D scene. But now with the technology that we've developed and that everyone has developed over the past years, I'm sure we can do better than that. Now, other topics are related to automatic refereeing. So you've seen during the FIFA World Cup that there's all this very nice technology, right, to see if a player is offside or not. But can we actually bring this kind of technology to amateur sports, not having to rely on a big system that is very expensive? Finally, we're also working on a project with FIFA right now for medical analysis, so trying to define the different type of injuries that people can have while playing soccer. And we can also find some more fine-grained kind of actions, like trying to extract the skeleton of the players to analyze their playing style. And finally, one very important question is, can we actually transfer that to other sports? So as you can see here, these are challenges from another of our partners who are working on basketball, but can we actually develop methods that can directly adapt to the different, to the different sports? So that's it for my talk. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to follow us, we have our YouTube channel, GitHub for code if you're interested, and you can follow us on our SoccerNet webpage as well, on our Discord. Feel free. So if I caught your interest in finding out more about what SoccerNet can do for you, for your industry, for your research, for anything, feel free to reach out, and thank you very much for listening.
نشكر الدكتور أنتوني على هذا العرض الشيق. Thank you, Dr. Anthony, for your insightful presentation. والآن ندعو الدكتور البروفيسور تشان يون، رئيس الأمن السيبراني بجامعة خليفة بالإمارات العربية المتحدة الشقيقة، لتقديم عرضه.
Now okay.
No.
Hello?
Yes.
Now, okay, very good. Just technical glitch just now, okay. And I'm from Khalifa University, and I will be talking about mental fitness for the sportsmen. So currently we just discussed about the physical, the performance of SoccerNet. And SoccerNet is very, very interesting. Thank you, Dr. Anthony, for very soulful insight. And data is, very, very important. Because of data, that we can able to use AI techniques, right? So, let's move on. No? Yes, yeah. Okay, this is overall my talk. I will talk about outline about how to evaluate athletics fitness for evaluation and what is done at Khalifa universities. And most importantly, this is interesting era because, the long time ago, we used the internet, the first generation of internet. And this internet started in the Ministry of Defense in the US. And when it started from PCs and interconnections and things like that. And then we have a second evolution of internet, which is the mobile phone. Now getting large frame into smaller and smaller. Now we have a wearable device. And this wearable device is very intriguing. Why? Because we are collecting data. Collecting from the heartbeat, ECG, okay? And also we collect another data, which we call it brainwave, EEG. Okay, and also we have a lot of physiologists, like for example, we're wearing vest, like soccer player, they're wearing the uniform. Inside now, they put sensors. This sensor is detecting the heartbeat of monitoring of each individual soccer players and so on. So this is nowadays collecting all this information. Okay, so this is the way that forward at the moment. And second generation is a smartphone to 2G, 3G, and 5Gs. And now we have another internet, third generation of internet, because second generation is like SNS. SNS, what is SNS? We're using every day, Twitters, Facebook, YouTubes, and now at the moment we are streaming YouTube. Long time ago, big boys like CNN, NBC, these medias are very important, but nowadays YouTube is people, you can be your own broadcast station, for example. It changed the lifestyle, as you know. So that is the second generation of internet. Now we are approaching the new internet, which is metaverse. I don't know whether you heard about metaverse. Metaverse is the third generation of internet that interacting with many things. Like, for example, virtual reality. I think you know about what's virtual reality. And augmented reality. And we call it, come together, we call it mixed reality. So what is the difference from the second generation of internet to third generation? Because second generation is like 2-dimension. What is a 2-dimension? You can have a look at in the scrolling, like if you want to buy something and you can read something, you can browse it through the 2-dimension. Now, what in the metaverse does is we call it 3-dimension. Like, for example, my name is Dr. Chan and work for California University. I can create digital twin inside of the metaverse, for example. So we call it 3-dimension. Look and feel of 3-dimension. Before we have 2-dimension as YouTube and also Twitters and Facebook, all this. Now, as you know, did you know that Facebook, they changed the name? They call it Meta now. So how the social media is moving into metaverse, okay? And recently in UAE, Dubai, they are considering Meta City in Dubai. So they're creating digital twin in the system. At the same time, actually, Anthony mentioned at the last minute about healthcare's right interaction with the 3D dimension and games. And actually, due to COVID-19, the COVID-19 caused a lot of problems, as you know. At the same time, opportunities. Believe me, because I was teaching for 2 years online because of COVID-19 at the time. But because of this, and a lot of acceleration for interaction, because we can discuss, we can do the research and collecting the data for all the things through internet, online. And online bring a lot of opportunity in AI, and also it come into sports. Okay, now sports is one of the most interesting area that is we are here, so I'm going to talk about more on that. Right. So as you can see from there is that what is motivate you to consider like a soccer player like him or the athletics like him to have a thought about, because there is a lot of anxiety about threat, about the sportsmen, because they want to win. Nobody wants to lose. You see, there is a stress already. And because of that, we need to consider mental fitness, health fitness of each individual of a soccer player. Not only that, athletics as well, and sportsmen, sportswomen too. So that is bring the opportunity, as you can see, enhance performance while lowering players' risk. At the same time, understand individual's mental fitness is required. Right, so as you can see from here, these are the mental risk. And according to WHO, the World Health Organization, they consider two things, to prioritize mental health as well as physical health, okay? So in other words, you may have, very physical strengths. However, when you play in the top players, mental fitness and mental work is very, very important, especially those who play golf. Then just stress, okay? How to release the stress and all those things. So as you can see, pressures to succeed, to win, and also competition stress, and also, perfectionism. I want to be the best in the world. Physical demand. Number 5 is mental demand. In other words, we want to measure how to measure the mental fitness of each individual, and it plays using the brainwave. We call it EEG, our brainwave. Actually, my studies with my postdocs and the RAs, we're working on biometrics. Biometric means my heartbeat. My heartbeat is different from your heartbeat. In other words, using artificial intelligence, using machine learning and deep learning, we can identify who you are using measuring the heartbeat. Okay? At the same time, we got intrigued because we developed these techniques using AI, but also I was talking to a professor from biomedical engineering. And this professor from biomedical engineering, using your technique just now, we can apply to detect heart disease. So suddenly, out of blue, we applied it, and we have a paper on detecting heart disease. So in other words, I never considered working with biomedical engineering. We have a paper, just like that. Just like that, also, we can apply in AI in the health. And also, our brainwave is unique. My brainwave is different from your brainwave. Each brainwave has different physiologies and different, we call it wavelengths. Therefore, alpha wavelengths, beta wavelengths, and so on. So you can detect the emotion of the people. I'll talk about that in more detail. So, right, so what you do is that data is very important. I always talk to my students, garbage in, garbage out. If you collect good data, then you can produce good outcome. And Anthony mentioned that you collect a lot of data. Congratulations, that is a key to success. In my opinion, if you have good data to collect, then this can able to lead to good output, okay? And that's what we are doing right now at Khalifa University in Abu Dhabi. And we're collecting not only heartbeat, the brainwave. And brainwave will tell you how to detect emotion of the people, okay? Not only emotion, but also health check, stress, whether I'm stressed or not. So that is the motivation. Data is important. And I just mentioned about the soccer players' uniform. Now they have a census. Yeah? And not only the soccer players, any athletics, like for example, football player, basketball player, tennis player, they wear best. And you can always collect all this information and also physiologies. So in other words, not only you can collect all the heat map of the players, but also you can individual the players about collecting the data. So that'll be the game changers. You can analyze and you can even predict. And what is the next player? What are you going to do? Next time he use this movement, then according to AIs, he will hit on the right in the tennis court. Okay? So this is a prediction. This is for the future. So that's that. And this is also, the AI allow athletes to learn more about their abilities and limitation, where the coach can make data-informed decision about training and performance. So in other words, it is also useful for the coach too, okay? And managers and coach in the soccer players, and they are now collecting all this. And because of that, they can have informed decision rather than, the guessing decision. AI can tell you, So also I talk to my students. There are two kinds of people in the world, in the future, not now, in the future, is that someone is that told by AI what to do, okay? Another person, you told AI what to do. Where are you? Which person are you? That is the future. In the most likely, only 2 to 3% is those who are individual that tell AI what to do. The rest will be told by AI, unfortunately. That is going that direction, unfortunately. And this is important. That's why we have to create a new job. Many people said, because of AI, we're going to lose a lot of jobs. No. In my opinion, this kind of abrupt technology, boost up another direction of the new jobs. For example, data scientist, okay, and algorithm developer. And all this is new jobs, okay? And also in the past, like for example, remember when the horse and carriages, at the time, we moved to car, right? And they are very worried. They all lost all of them, all the jobs. And now, car driver is also on the risk. Why? Because autonomous vehicle. We don't need the driver anymore, okay? And all this. So it move on, new technology, and because of that, we have a developer in data science, in AI, for example, and so on. Right. So this is we use each individual of, you collect the data, you can use machine learning and the deep learning to analyze through the neural net. And this is how we evaluate, okay? So this, for example, we have a data acquisition, and the pointer Anthony will collect a lot of data. So data is king, and identifier, we enroll, compare, match score, and decision making. And also we have false reject rate and false acceptance rate equal error rate, and so on. So this is currently what does it use in our system at the moment. Now, I'm going to play a video. This video is we are doing at the moment at Khalifa, and this can be easily applied in AI in sports, in the mental fitness. I'm going to play for you, and you can listen to that. There is a sound is missing.
Explainable artificial intelligence to evaluate fitness.
Can you
using
play the sound?
Electroencephalogram device is a project used to evaluate the fitness of duty of subjects working in a national critical infrastructure using the human brainwave.
It's very difficult to detect the emotion, but now we can use help of ECG and EEG. We can able to detect the emotion of the people.
We are using in this project a known international set of pictures called International Affective Picture System, which is widely used in psychological tests. These pictures imposes different emotions into your brain, and we capture the brain wave while we imposes these different emotions like sad, happiness, and so on. We are using a device called Emotive Insight device. This is a device you place in your head. It has 5 main pointers. Using these pointers, we can evaluate whether a subject is fit to perform their duties in national critical infrastructure at a particular time or not.
Yes, you can see this video, and from that, what we are talking about is that we using the EEG, the brainwave, you can, whether that person is sad or not happy, stressed, all these things can be used, okay? And this picture was approved by the psychologist. And they are approved, when you see this picture, they can feel the emotion. But now we are developing even further at the moment to collect, we ask some questions and also monitoring in conjunction with the ECG, the heartbeat plus the brainwave, you can have more accurate data for the future of each individual, for the emotions, and fit whether that health, each sportsman and sportswoman is their mental health is good in state or not. So we consider this, okay? And also, because of the human involved, of course, we have to sign, for example, to make sure that we're not going to use for any other uses, like for example, for the privacy and security. So we have signed so that it anonymized. In other words, anybody using this data is anonymized. They don't know who's talking about. It is very important that we protect this kind of data from other people, okay? So this is important. So that we done with using brainwave, whether that person is fit to work or not, intention or inside the threat in the, for example, national critical infrastructure. As you know, in the UAE, they are developing nuclear power plant in Baraka. And because of that, the inside threat, those people are going into this critical infrastructure, they need to check the mental, status. So we can apply this. But also, this technique can also apply fighter plane. Like, for example, those are pilots, you can check whether they're mentally okay or not to go to fly. Okay, so this is, in the past, there is some pilots go cuckoo, okay, and something happened. So you want to check that as well. So, right, so this is, we started inside threat, fitness for duty, human error, but this similar thing can apply in AI in sports. So I'll talk about it in more detail, and this is, we see the artificial intelligence evaluate security easy into the frame. But what we do now recently, we use the heartbeat as well as the brainwave combined to better have accuracy for the future. So we have experiments, test that, and data collection, data processing, AI classification, model evaluation accordingly. Right, this is what does it look like, what the patient or each individual coming in, we collect all this information and in the stage, and also use, this is based on heartbeat. So heartbeat status, we collect all this into that. What we've done is that we're combining ECG, heartbeat, as well as the brainwave to have better accuracy. That is the recent research at the moment. And this is a paper that we published, we call multimodality. Multimodality is not only using one modality, but also combining other modalities such as, the ECG and EEG, fingerprint, face, and all this information into the system. We publish in the top Q1 journal, okay? And so how we apply the mental fitness by using AI techniques? Of course, athletics play a critical role maintaining safety, security, and safeguard of sports, okay? And program to ensure mental fitness are increasing in AI in sports. And if they're mentally fit, then they will enhance their performance and boost up their, the performance, and they could have win in the top place at the moment. AI in sports facilities highly depend on athletic mental fitness, and also there can be a danger as well. So mental unfit leads to causing problems. Right, so these are the data that we collect. So in the vest we have, you can collect from the brainwave, okay, and then also from the ECG, the heartbeat, and also you can also monitor GSC and PGP, also combine these kind of ideas into the vest, you can do something about it. And collecting not only individual of athletics and sportsmen, sports ladies, but also you can use the heat map, and Dr. Anthony mentioned that all this data set can be applied, then it will be the future. And I'm very intrigued to work with Dr. Anthony since we had a good chat just now, okay? Right, so that's about it, actually. And, thank you for listening. I really appreciate for your listening. Thank you.
كل الشكر للدكتور تشان على هذا العرض الممتع. والآن نتشرف بدعوة السيد بدر بوسبات رئيس AI Together وخبير ذكاء اصطناعي لتقديم عرضه.
Hello everyone, I'm glad to be here with you to talk about artificial intelligence. And today I'm going to tackle the idea of value of data when it comes to analyzing artificial intelligence. Just in a nutshell, I'm sharing the international organization AI Together, but I have also a background in finance. I've been working in the most important investment banks in Europe in risk management and financial risk management. And I try to merge these two expertise, artificial intelligence and finance. And we're going to understand why the value of data is such an important aspect when it comes to analyzing sports industry. Okay, why does data value matter? It's a clear observation. Actually, data-driven companies made up 7 of the global top 10 firms by stock market capitalization in 2021. It says a lot about how data value matter when it comes to analyzing artificial intelligence. And in my point of view, this is one of the most underestimated aspects when we talk about artificial intelligence. Actually, artificial intelligence is a systemic tool. It means that it will have an impact in all sectors simultaneously, meaning there is a huge economic opportunity in artificial intelligence because we use data. And evaluating data, giving a value to data, it's a very complex process. And in economics, in finance, we have adopted 3 approaches. The first one is a cost-based approach. The second approach is the income-based. And finally, we're going to go through the market-based approach. Before talking about these 3 approaches, let me share with you the following table, which is quite interesting. When we talk about data, and when we translate the information into economic knowledge, this is what we got. When we analyze the data, when we would like to give a value to the data, we need to understand if the data is rival or non-rival. When the data is rival, it means that only one user can use the data available. And of course, it has an impact on the value of the data. You have also externalities. We can't give a value to data without taking into consideration the externalities. It could be pollution, but it could be also collective benefit to people. For example, in terms of sports, in the sports industry, when a value has an impact on sportsmen and sportwomen health, we can talk about positive externality. In order to value data, we need also to predict if the data will generate increasing or decreasing revenues, decreasing returns. Because even in the sports industry, we need to run businesses and we need to be profitable. That's why we need to pay attention to the economic strategy we would like to apply when it comes to analyzing data. In any company, even in the sports industry, we have also high fixed costs, meaning that we have constant costs we need to take into account. It could be when it comes to storing data. It could be when it comes to get a license for software and so on. So meaning that we need to consider this aspect when we talk about data valuation. Let's start with the cost-based approach. The cost-based approach is the easiest way to evaluate data. It's actually a sum of costs. And actually, this is the amount we spend when it comes to storing data and when it comes to getting a new software. A cost-based approach asks us to consider a depreciation rate based on the purpose of data. Each data has its own purpose, and we should always differentiate, distinguish the type of data we have around. But the problem is with this aspect, with this approach, is that this approach is very conservative, meaning we can't compare the data value within, among companies, between companies, because there is no relative approach when it comes to talk about cost-based approach. Each company has its own way to consider data with the cost-based approach, meaning we can't generalize this concept. But it's interesting just to have in mind how we can run the company. The good point with the cost-based approach is that the value doesn't require any human judgment. We do not need any human interpretation, deep interpretation. We can get, we should get in the other approach. I'm gonna through like in a few minutes. And in my point of view, the cost-based approach is not the most interesting approach when it comes to analyzing the sports industry. Because in the sports industry, we need a marketplace. We need to exchange data. We need also to give a market value to data. And with the cost-based approach, it's definitely not possible. Let's talk about the income-based approach. This approach is quite interesting because it is based on expected revenue streams. Compared to the cost-based approach, this is a direct measure to understand how much money a company can save by creating new data. And actually, data is the product. But there are limited, let's say, opportunities, because only big firms, large firms like Google, Apple, and so on, are more likely to collect this vast amount of data, process it, and then selling it to other companies. The bad aspect also, the less interesting aspect about the income-based approach is linked to the difficulty to identify if the revenue streams correspond to the use of data. Because sometimes we should include some implied inputs, implied, let's say, aspects, factors that are really difficult to identify in my point of view. And when it comes to analyzing the income-based approach, it's very difficult to predict what would be the revenues, because we require an historical view about what we get in terms of revenue streams in the past. For the sports industry, income-based can be interesting for some companies, but in general, again, it's not enough to use it in the sports industry. Let's go through the third approach, which is the market-based approach. The market-based approach is certainly the most interesting approach when it comes to giving value to data, because it's based on observables. And moreover, it's transparent. This is the main distinction between the market-based approach and the two previous approaches. But in order to achieve the objective while using the market-based approach, we need data marketplaces. And this is quite a challenge. This is a very challenging aspect because we need global standards. And nowadays, it's very difficult to agree on a global standard and then use a large data marketplace to exchange it. Also, data marketplace development depends on the regulation, local regulation. And when a country launch or, let's say, develop a restrictive regulation on data, it is almost impossible to use artificial intelligence and then exchange more data in the market. With the market-based approach, data is intermediate good, but also an experience good. It's less likely to predict value and quality before consumption. But there is an important aspect that emerged from this assumption. In the market-based approach, data has an option value. It's like in finance. We can store this data, keep it for a while, and then reuse it in the near future if the strategy needs to adapt. But the bad aspect, the negative aspect of the option value is about the asymmetric information. Let's take an example. For example, the injury data. It's very interesting in the sports industry, but it could lead to asymmetric information. Why? Because if a team, if a club has knowledge, has info, data about a specific player that has a high potential to get injured in the upcoming 3 months, and there is an objective of selling this player to another club, it could lead to asymmetric information because it's going to impact the counterparty in terms of negotiation. And we know in economics pretty well that when there is any asymmetric information situation, the efficiency is decreasing, meaning that the decision-making quality decreases over time. And the goal of artificial intelligence and exchanging data is about increasing, enhancing, empowering the quality of decision-making. So after a lack of efficiency, we got a lack of trust. And as Keynes, one of the greatest economists, said, without trust, no exchange, no trade, so chaos. And even in even in the sport industry, we need to take that into account because it's also about business, it's also about exchanging data to have a better quality decision making. Let's talk about data marketplaces. I shared with you this table with different views. We have, of course, the one-to-one data marketplace, the one-to-many, the many-to-one, or the many-to-many. And the idea, the question is, which data marketplace is suitable, is the most convenient one to the sports industry? There are two views. First of all, we need to use the one-to-many approach when it comes to the intervention of the state. The state, public authorities should embrace a cost-based approach because the goal of a state is not to make money, but to make sure that regulation is helping data companies to develop their artificial intelligence. So it's about generating raw data, but indeed, when you have an open access to data, you can't make money. But at least you have the state, the public authority that can protect the market. Regarding private companies, this is another story. We need a many-to-many approach. It's very important to keep in mind that the market-based approach is maybe the most transparent way to exchange data. And this is definitely missing in the sports industry on a global level. Actually, when decision-making quality is getting higher and higher, we are more likely to do business. And even though in the soccer industry, we knew that, for example, when Neymar has been sold to Paris Saint-Germain, we knew from the beginning that we had specific issue with this player because he were like very more likely to get injured in the first new weeks when he joined Paris Saint-Germain. With artificial intelligence and data exchange and a better view about injury data of Neymar, the club that sold Neymar would have been more likely to renegotiate the contract and, of course, reach a better efficiency. There's also the impact-based approach, but this is not relevant for the sports industry. Okay, let me talk about this specific topic. Let's compare data and more money, currency. I performed a TEDx on artificial intelligence with the following title: Let's launch an augmented basic income based on data. Why data matters? Actually, the difference between data and money, monetary capital, is that data is an investment. This is not just a store of value like existing currencies, like conventional currencies. And what's interesting is when you lower the interest rate, when the central bank lowered the interest rate, we print more money. There is more money in circulation. But there is a negative correlation with the value of the money. The currency decreases in the value. But what's interesting with data is there is a positive correlation between the value of data and its volume. More data we have, more value we get. This is the main difference with currency, meaning that we can create data even in a degrowth system and then create new commercial opportunities. We know perfectly well when an inflation is raging on, even though we increase the interest rates, the economic issues are maintaining over time. At least 10 years of inflation will be the risk. With data, it's another story. But in order to achieve that, we need a new data architecture, new data marketplaces. If we are able to give a value to very complex financial products like CDS, CDO, and so on, we are also able to give a value to data. Mathematically, there is no challenge. The challenge relies on how we're going to make it happen. There's also another aspect I want to talk about when it comes to comparing currency, money, and data. When you have a low interest rate environment, indeed, you are more likely to borrow money, to get money from a bank. But you will be more likely to give a new life to zombie companies. What is a zombie company? Zombie company doesn't innovate anymore, but thanks to the debt, the companies survive in the market. When we are in a low interest environment, these companies in general are big, huge, and can't give a better access to new companies to innovate, meaning there is such a discrimination in the market because the low interest rate goes against innovation, because new companies with data, for example, or new artificial intelligence projects can't compete. And this is also a new aspect we need to talk about and to work on in order to see how we can make competition fairer. Let me talk about this final slide. AI is not replacing coaches and managers. I am sharing with you this following Cobb-Douglas equation. I don't know if you have ever heard about it. It looks difficult to understand, but actually it's very easy to get. This is a very well-known equation in economics. And actually, you have a Y, the L, and the K. The Y represents the capital, the profit, the knowledge. And you have the L, which is labor, and K, capital, money. And you need, indeed, labor and capital to augment your profit, to increase your profit. And you see, here you have the alpha. The alpha is linked to the automation level in any industry, any sector. And of course, when the alpha equals 1, the beta equals 0. When alpha equals 0.5, the beta equals 0.5. Meaning there is an equilibrium to respect when you allocate your labor working force and your capital, your money in a company. But what's interesting with this Cobb-Douglas equation, we can definitely understand that when the alpha equals 1, we actually have a super automated company without any humans working for it. But there is an effect, so-called the Baumol effect, that actually has an impact on the alpha when it reaches 1. This Baumol effect has the following impact. It decreases the automation level to increase the importance of human contribution. Why? Because actually, when you have a high automation level in a company, in an industry, you need more humans to create new ideas and launch new economic opportunities. So there is no contradiction between automating tasks, automating projects, and hiring new people. This means that in any time you want to automate within your company in a specific sector, you will always need people, you will always need managers and coaches to create new ideas, new strategy, or a better organization when it comes to managing a team of football, for example, in soccer and so on. So if you apply this Cobb-Douglas equation to the industry, you will be more likely to understand that humans will never get replaced by any artificial intelligence, and moreover, all the recent papers, like the recent paper performed by the World Economic Forum, it states that we can't talk about human replacement when it comes to jobs, because we can replace tasks, but we never replace jobs. We have been always creating new jobs, and this Cobb-Douglas equation is definitely the idea we should keep in mind when we want to vulgarize artificial intelligence knowledge to people. Thank you very much for your careful patience. I hope you have some question about artificial intelligence in economics or finance. Indeed, I wanted to connect the first forum with today's forum, because in my point of view, we can't distinguish investment economics and the sports industry. It comes together, and artificial intelligence is definitely the new challenge of the industry. Thank you very much.
نشكر السيد بدر بوسبات. الأخوة والأخوات، نتوقف الاستراحة ونعود إليكم في الساعة 12:20. نستأنف جلسات المحور خلال 3 دقائق. مرحبا بكم أيها الأخوة والأخوات مجددا في محور الذكاء الاصطناعي في الرياضة. نختم عروضنا لهذا اليوم بإذن الله مع عرض شيق يقدمه لنا السيد فيليب بلانشارد المؤسس والرئيس التنفيذي لفيوتشرس.
Thank you so much. I'm excited, honored. I thank His Highness. And I also thank Dr. Jassim for organizing this talk. The first thing I want to stress is that we are living in a very complex world. Multi-dimensions, multi-stakeholders, the world is changing, we know that. And we need to use our intelligence and our experience to understand how things are going and evolving. It is a bias, as we say in artificial intelligence. The way we see things is influenced by our own experience and the data set we are using. What are my bias? The first one is I've been working for 15 years in the Olympic movement and nearly 12 years for the World Expos. So my perspective is about complexity management and how do we create new sport organizations, how do we create new sport events, how do we work on World Expos, and it has structured my thinking. I think that sport is a mirror of our society, and I think that sports and competitions and mega events gives us the possibility to understand what might be the future. And this is why with some colleagues from the IOC, we have created Futuribus, the games of the future and the future of sport. Sport is about time. Sport is about space. Sport is about the laws of nature where mankind is facing the reality of nature. I don't know if there is a kind of an echo. No? And as we remember, beginning of the automotive industry, Frederick Taylor used to say, if you cannot measure it, it's a hobby. In sport, if you cannot measure it, it is not sport. Sport is about data everywhere. Time, distance, rules. Data is at the core of the practice of sport. Data is what makes the competition interesting. And data, as we have seen earlier today, data provides us with a good liaison with the fan, and hence, data gives us the possibility to monetize and to make more revenues out of sports. This is the sport ecosystem. The athletes is in the middle of a network with family, competitors, clubs, international federations, sportswear manufacturers, sport medicine. And technology was always there. And technology has taken more and more importance. And by technology, I mean the technique. I also intend the data, because the two are linked. And it's interesting to see now that despite the fact technology is everywhere, for many sport organizations, and I'm thinking of the IOC, for which I've been working many years, sport was outside of the technology. Sport was aiming at representing cultures, communities, providing places for countries and people to compete in a pacific way, but it was always pushing away technology. But now we cannot live without technology, and I see different people with smartphones taking pictures. Technology has become part of our life, in the world of sport as well. And what is interesting with technology and sport is that the amount of data which was used has increased, And our relationship with data has also changed. We have moved from predictive models, analyzing our previous performances gave us the possibility to understand what might be the future. And now with artificial intelligence, we have the capacity to reach a new level, integrating sport-related data, which is objective data, the speed, my gender, my discipline, sport-related data which are subjective, attractivity of the sport, and non-sport-related data which are also important. Some researchers have found that by taking into consideration the GDP of a country, the sport culture, the sport budget, socioeconomic, they were able to predict the performance of their athletes. Artificial intelligence is collecting all these data, objective, subjective, and non-sport related, to create more and more values, more and more opportunities, and also, because sport is combining money, visibility, technology, data, politics, geopolitics, sport has become a melting pot where important questions for geopolitics, important questions for philosophy can be raised. So let's have a look at the fields in which technology and data / artificial intelligence will have an impact. And let's try to predict what is the future for sports, knowing it's always very difficult to talk about the future, obviously. First field, as we have seen earlier, the technology is providing support for the athletes. Second field, technology is providing support for the gameplay, for the efficiency of a team. So we are shifting from the individual to the team. For collective sport, it's extremely important. Understanding how your team is performing is critical. Understanding how your competitors might be performing, it's also extremely important and critical. Obviously, and we discussed that earlier this morning with SoccerNet, technology and the data and artificial intelligence is also providing us information about how to increase the fan satisfaction, how to create value for the fan, and how can we make money out of the fan engagement. And we have not been talking too much about fan tokenization, but this is something we can address later when we have the panel. What I would like to stress today is we have seen technology for the athletes, technology for the team, technology for the fan, but we have not been discussing a lot technology for the sport organizations. How artificial intelligence is going to change our sport organization. What are the opportunities for a country like Bahrain, for the Middle East, for the geopolitics? What are the opportunities existing? And my team and I, we have identified two sets of outcomes, positive outcomes, and potentially less positive outcomes. Let's talk about the positive outcomes. Everything related to coaching and performance management, health and prevention, it was presented earlier this morning. Yes, artificial intelligence will help us be more efficient and will protect the athletes physically and mentally. New business models, we can make money by creating new business opportunities. Bahrain is currently investigating what type of technology and companies they can invest in. What you have been doing with Brave is amazing. What about getting investment in companies supporting new businesses? We have, and I don't know if many persons here have used ChatGPT, for instance, or all these open AI tools. We have new ways of creating content for the fans and for the fanhood. Sports journalism is going to change completely. We have seen with SoccerNet that we can create more value out of football, for instance, and increase the fanhood or increase the level of satisfaction for the fans. Artificial intelligence will be massive in that. And there is something a bit new, which is about augmented reality, connected athletes, new sport environments, and new sports. Yes, we know that technology and artificial intelligence will give us the possibility to reconsider some of the competitions. We can have a local competitions in Bahrain connected with a local competition in Moscow, connected with a local competition in the US, and we are having these physical competitions also joined in a virtual environment. In terms of business, it is massive. In terms of sponsoring, it opens new doors for sponsors. These are the positive elements. What about the questions? What about the drawbacks? And we have listed here different questions I would like to address with you. The first one is what we call techno-doping. How do we keep mens sano in corpore sano? How do we keep a healthy mind in a healthy body if all the decisions are no more taken by the athletes or the coach, but by artificial intelligence? Are we still humans? Or are we becoming robots under the direction of artificial intelligence? And I was discussing earlier with Dr. about what philosophy and religion can teach us. We need to go back to Averroes, our physical and our spiritual nature. Artificial intelligence can challenge that. Second element, more and more of the competitions are now financed by betting, sports betting. How can you make a business out of it if artificial intelligence can help you predict what will be the outcome? A university in India has developed an AI tool for cricket, and don't ask me, I'm a French person, so cricket is very, very complex for me. They have developed an AI tool which is able to have a 92% accuracy of the outcome. Just a question. If you like a sport, let's say football, are you sure you are going to watch the entirety of the match if you know already the results before you start watching? Yes? Okay. You are probably one of the only ones. When I was working at the IOC and my team and I, we created the business intelligence, we started investigating, do we lose a lot of viewers if the result is known beforehand? Depending on the sports and the communities, you lose between 70 to 80% of the viewers. And the other ones are going to look at the highlights. What's the use of having a 90 minutes football game if only 5 minutes are interesting? What is the impact of having a 90-minute football game where, by playing on a console, FIFA, you can have games in 5 minutes? So the question of match fixing and betting is important, but more importantly, are we killing the drama in sport? Why do we like sport? It's because David is able to beat Goliath. We always hope that our team is going to outperform the competing team. Artificial intelligence, by predicting, analyzing the outcome, can kill that drama of sport. I'm not saying it will, I'm just saying it can. I talked about fan and fan tokenization. Are we still talking about sport values? Is everything about money? And I liked it that yesterday, the second intervention here on stage was about the economics of sport, and we were given huge amount of money and information about all the revenues we can make. Yes, it's part of the business, it's part of the ecosystem, but sport is also outside of the financial environment. Grassroots sport is about people driving their kids to cricket, volley, swimming, and having pleasure of that. So the whole sports ecosystem is not always concerned by money. And the last element, which is for me critical, is when we are competing in the classical sports, we are facing the laws of nature. If we are competing in an environment which is supported by technology, code is low. The ones who have designed the systems, they are the ones who might control the results. So can we have the values of sport expressed in a virtual environment? Maybe, if we ensure the authenticity is preserved. And this is something which is extremely important in terms of the sport ecosystem and the autonomy of sports. FIFA does not own the electronic versions of its sports. It belongs to Konami and to Electronic Arts. So if they decide to change the rules because they are the developers and the intellectual property laws states that they are the owners because code is low, they can invent a new type of sports. My point is, for Bahrain and the leadership, it's interesting to look at technology, but please make sure you have ownership on the technology. Because if you are using external partners, you might be threatening your further development. My team and I, we have created Futurous Games. We have different activities, and one of them is what we call Galaxy, is esports. We have started negotiating with the editors, and I can tell you it's extremely difficult. And if we want to promote phygital sports, the combination of physical and electronic sports, it will be critical for the sport organization to ensure that they have ownership on that. Otherwise, you develop, and one day, the editor comes back to you and says, oh, by the way, it was free before, now I'm requesting $100 million per year, so you can keep on your activities using my softwares. This is exactly what happened between FIFA and Electronic Arts. FIFA was happy to work with Electronic Arts, and 1 year, Electronic Arts, as you know, started saying, there is big money, we want to have a bigger share. And the contract between FIFA and EA was not reconducted. So, we are facing a systemic dilemma. On the one hand, yes, we can develop new services, we can develop new sports, which is positive. On the other hand, there are questions about the authenticity of sports and the autonomy of sports. Authenticity, we believe what we see. But if we are creating deep fakes, if we are enabling a real John McEnroe to play against a virtual John McEnroe, what are we believing? Sport is entering a new dimension, and we might not know exactly, is it authentic anymore? And this notion of authenticity is critical for the world of sport because it's one of the values we are cherishing. My message today is, as sport organizations, we have a huge responsibility to investigate artificial intelligence and tell the rest of the world, because sport is a mirror of our society and community, and sports can be a laboratory for the future. So I'm advocating that all the work you are doing in the Middle East, and especially in Bahrain, you take that into consideration, that everything should be also communicated outside of the world of sports, because it is important and it is about our humanity. And I thank you for your listening.
الكرام، بس قبل لا نكمل أجندة المؤتمر حاب أرحب بسمو الشيخ سلمان بن محمد نائب رئيس الهيئة العامة للرياضة، والدكتور سعادة الدكتور عبد الرحمن صادق عسكر رئيس التنفيذي للهيئة العامة للرياضة. السادة الأفاضل، ننتقل معا إلى الجلسة النقاشية. Thank you everyone for your interesting and insightful presentations, and thanks again for coming on stage for the Q&A and further discussions. As AI in sport is an important topic, we are honored to create this panel to get the audience questions, to share your thoughts regarding AI in sports, and to share some recommendations to the sport organizations at the Kingdom of Bahrain. We have a short period of time, around 30 minutes, so we are going to break it into distinct chunks. So we have a few questions from the audience, dig deep into some topics related to AI and sports, and also we would like to get some recommendations from you. So before we start, just let me introduce our panelists once again. So we have Dr. Anthony Choppa, postdoc researcher at the University of Liège in Belgium, and Dr. Chan Yoon, cybersecurity leader for the Center for Cyber Physical System at Khalifa University from UAE. Mr. Badr Bousabat, head of AI Together International, and senior consultant and communications officer, East Nest. And Mr. Philippe Blanchard, CEO at Futures. So let's start with the audience. We want to address as many questions as you can. Please raise your hand and indicate your interest and name.
It's like a beauty contest.
Is it? You are the tallest, by the way.
Please vote for me. Please vote for me.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, please. The mic.
السلام عليكم، كيف الحال؟ يعطيكم العافية على البرزنتيشن. Thank you very much and welcome in Bahrain. My question is follow: how we can improve the sport in Bahrain by artificial intelligence? That's my question.
So how we can improve the sport field by using artificial intelligence?
Maybe I can start with, it is fundamental question, but it's one of the most intriguing questions. Reason is that is difficult to achieve in the beginning. It takes time, in my opinion. The thing is, as we discussed in the discussion and also in the presentation, data is a king. In other words, if you collect good data with not only the sensors from the athletes, also the heat map that we discussed with SACANet, all this need to be collected thoroughly. And from this data, can able to reduce good result. As I told you from my talk, that garbage in, garbage out. If you have a collect good data, is a future. It will lead it to good direction, in my opinion. Thank you. So as also others point out also today is that good health in mind and good physical, good mind and good health, and it will lead to good direction for the future and good prediction for using AI. So in my opinion, it takes time. But now we already have data. You can analyze it, and also this data need to be shared with among us. And with that, we can able to improve sports in Bahrain. Thank you.
I think yesterday, and I'm thinking of what Tony presented, we need to understand what are the priorities and the objectives. And then that will help you identify what disciplines and what stakeholders you need to work with. Because there are many, many investors in sport and technology, and we are competing, you are competing with other countries and other investors. So you need to find a niche on which you can have a visibility, a legitimacy, and then you can expand this niche. But I think it's really about strategy, identifying what are the priorities, and based on these priorities, identifying if it's data, if it's changing the laws to ensure that you attract more investors, and you have laws which are also respectful of the data of the athletes. So there are many things, and I think yesterday there were some elements about what is the strategy to follow.
I would like also to add one element. Can you hear me well?
No, we can hear.
Okay, thank you so much. Indeed, I agree with you, Philip. You need to find your, as Ricardo, the great economist Ricardo said, you need to find your comparative advantage. You need to find your niche. This is the first condition. There is also a second condition to follow. It's about understanding that there is a prerequisite on artificial intelligence development. It's about digitization. You need to transform all the info you have around you into data. And once you have data, you need to consider quality of data. And afterwards, finally, at the end, we can use artificial intelligence and develop this niche, let's say, perspective.
Yeah.
Sad. Thank you very much. Any another question? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bahrain. My question is there a database or a way that you can develop for the grassroots in every sport to understand the efficiency of athletes, to start segregating them in the early stages for each sport? As you know, in a very high-level developed countries in sports, they start segregating the grassroots from a very young age, even at the age of 3, to understand that, like, these athletes are going to be excelled in gymnastics, or this athlete is going to be excelling in athletics, depending on their attributes and their body type. So is there a database now that can develop to segregate the grassroots athletes?
This is something that a lot of startup companies I know are working on actively, basically trying to put systems in place that will automatically fill the game of very young players, and that will extract some statistics about how they play, like do they play more like Ronaldo, do they play more like Messi, do they play more like Neymar? And they are trying right now to develop these kinds of methods. I'm not aware of an open source data set or an open source method that does it, because since there are companies doing that, I believe that they have their own assets and their own competitive advantage over others. So yeah, definitely this is something that companies are interested in right now, I can say. But I'm not sure there's one benchmark that can do that for any sports, and it's always very difficult to go from one sport to another, because movements are different, because you're not analyzing your strengths or weaknesses among the players and stuff.
We say, and we hear very often, data is the new oil. It is not true. Data is information which is related to a legal system, and you have two legal systems in the world. You have the common law and you have the civil law. In Europe, I am not allowed to sell information which can be, when combined, describe myself as a unique individual. In the US, I can do it. In the UK, I can do it. What I want to stress is data comes with requirements, legal requirements. For young people, we need to have the consent of the parents, and we need to have some barriers that the information we are collecting for sport purposes can be used for other purposes, for medical purposes, insurance purposes. So we need to be extremely cautious about that. And then, as we said, there are different options which exist, but what I want to stress is, please understand the value of data and make sure that the legal system of Bahrain, which I do not know enough, is compliant with the protection of the individual and the protection of the children.
I do absolutely agree with Philip, and as I mentioned during my talk, in order to have the human subject to collect the data, it requires the ethical board to be approved. This is very important. Otherwise, if not approved, then we're not able to go through or collect all this data. And also, from the cybersecurity-wise, what would you call it? We anonymize the data so that they cannot trace back this data, so that you can have extra protection on that as well. So we could do this in the future. Yes. So thank you.
And maybe just one thing, because I see many gentlemen and ladies with smart watches. Yeah. Smart watches are collecting data. They are not registered as medical devices, because at the beginning they were not able to be as accurate to qualify for the medical licenses. Now, the quality of the sensors is medical grade, which means that, if I may say, your medical data are here, and you don't know exactly what can be done with it. Mm-hmm. So going back to the regulation and the necessity when we talk about innovation to see the innovation in technology, but also to see the innovation in sociology, how people interact with technology, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and then to have innovation in the regulatory framework or the ethical perspective. Because as we were discussing with my colleagues, technology, when it's a general purpose technology, which means transversal, like artificial intelligence, technology is entering the field of ethics, which was not the case before. So there are new questions for the regulators and for the leadership.
I have also an element to add. Oh, go ahead, I will add it up.
No, it's okay. Add, and then she will ask a question.
Okay. So I wanted also to add the following aspect. There is no ethical development without economic development of AI. Because if you want to talk about your own ethics, your own point of view of the world, you need to have sufficient developed AI, because you can't actually develop artificial intelligence and talk about it without developing it. And in terms of credit, it doesn't make sense actually to talk about principles, to write new laws without developing artificial intelligence. So in my point of view, the precondition, the first condition before developing principles in law is about developing AI first to better understand it.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us, and I welcome you to the Kingdom of Bahrain. I just wanted to add on the point that you had mentioned, Dr. Abu Seb, and also in your last slide, which you were trying to build the trust that AI is not going to go against you. And I think this is what is important for us to understand, that we will develop the laws and the bylaws that will guarantee your privacy, that will guarantee that this data that's going to be collected and can be used in multiple disciplines will not go astray. But I believe that, and if you would second me on that, to bridge that gap between where we want to be and where we are now is to really build awareness about the positive aspects of AI, not only in sports, but in multiple disciplines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayman.
So,
we need just one speaker to answer, to have more questions to be answered. So, yeah, you can go on.
Can I start? Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, I was talking about the potential AI replacement in the market. I don't think that humans will get replaced by AI. I try to use this Cobb-Douglas equation because to me it's very clear. You know, in any firm I have been helping companies in business development, in AI and so on. And what I noticed that when there is a high automation level, you need new project manager to better conduct the company strategy. It's impossible to fully automate a company. You will have some companies that will get automated, but I think it's going to be more rare than we can think. And if you want to create new ideas and innovate on a long-term basis with brand new strategy, you need conversations, you need debates, you need discussions. And for sure, this is more likely to be performed by humans than artificial intelligence. So in my point of view, even though we notice a higher and higher automation level within companies, we should pay attention and keep in mind that it's going to be for a short time period only, because after that there will be a need of more humans. This is why the majority of jobs today did not exist in the Middle Age. You know, this is, I mean, those are jobs we have created because of technology development. And I don't think that artificial intelligence will actually go against this logic process.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Very informative presentations. My name is Kai Mietig. I'm an architect, and I'm based in the Middle East for 15 years, still affiliated with the sports and the German league, obviously, and as well affiliated with Sports Agency, football agency here in Bahrain. My question is related to Dr. Sioba. When you do the monitoring and tracking, we were building in 2009 the F1 in Abu Dhabi, and we have roughly 5,000 people at site. So every one of them had already an implemented RFID chip in the jacket and the safety personal equipment. So we could monitor when the people, let's say, not moving for 10 minutes, most likely they're sleeping somehow, somewhere. So I'm wondering how far is already the RFID chips implemented in, let's say, the sports equipment? Because you said you make tracking by the frame boxes of the players, trying to identify the numbers of the shirts and these things. So with RFID, I think it's very easy just to implement these in sports equipment, in the shirt or in the trousers or in the shoes, and then you have easily tracking and the motions, even the turning and twisting of the players. So is it already implemented, or will it be going to implement it? And I think it's very beneficial to analyze then the players' movement and the game structure.
So that's a very interesting question, actually. There are two things actually on this topic, is whether you want to use some kind of embedded system and then you have to have the player wear it. So this already exists. It's been tested. And for instance, like during the World Cup, there was the ball that had this tracker inside, right? And that's very sensitive. I had one of the balls in my hand, and you can even just like slightly feel it, and you see the response of the ball. So we have these trackers that are available, obviously, that can be used for professional soccer and everything, but what about amateur soccer as well? Like, do we want each people, for instance, in underdeveloped countries, to buy these trackers to be able to analyze their playing style as well? Or do we want to base it on computer vision only? So the advantage with computer vision is that you just place a camera and then you expect it to do the rest, right? So it's not an invasive system as we call it. This could give more opportunity to developing countries and people inside developing countries to actually be able to put forward their player as well. So this is one way. The other thing is that, as I said, there's the industry part, but there's also the research part. And in the research part, tracking, multiple object tracking, multiple person tracking is very important, not only for sports, but also for surveillance, for instance, where if you need to track someone among the crowd, like you need to develop methods that are based solely on vision. You cannot rely on every single person wearing a jacket that has a chip inside, right? So this is why we also take interest in the tracking part from a purely optical point of view. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Anthony. Any more questions? Yes, please.
So Mohammed Abdullah from Ministry of Industry and Commerce. I'm head of development team and also a board member of Samahiji Club. My question is about collecting the data. I think it is the most important part of the AI, of implementing AI in sports. And I think that maybe the hard part of the AI is about collecting the data. So what is the techniques that can be used with low cost for the collecting data and using the AIs? Thank you.
I can take that.
Well, I can quickly comment on that. Actually, we do have the sensor that we have ECG sensors already. So and currently it was not accurate before. Getting better accuracy. So if we have chip sensors embedded. So this IoT device, in not only this but also other. If you're wearing the uniform with the vest, and within that there are some sensors, other sensor, heartbeat, or the like direction of the movement. And when you wear football shoes, they can also have sensors too. So that all these combination of sensors, and you can able to see the way they twist it and way they move, and produce the goal at the end. And this can be able to who could provide. Chip sensor is still valuable, but combining is not that easy, not that simple. That in the future, I think that we need to combine these sensors in such a way that we can produce a good result, good data to produce in the future. That's my opinion.
I would like to take an example which is outside of the sports business, and it is what happened with Dubai Expo 2020 next door. My team and I, we wanted to ensure that we would not have negative press from international press and mainly the UK regarding the workers' welfare. And we started working with the workers and the workers' company to know if it would be relevant to have cheap devices monitoring their health status, and our objective was to avoid having casualties because sometimes they are tired or they don't want to say we are not feeling well because they are afraid not of being paid. Many reasons. And the point I want to stress is we can find cheap sensors, but what we need to do is, as it was said yesterday, we need to have a comprehensive strategy. We need to talk with the people. We need to have the legal reflection so it becomes something positive. Bahrain has the capacity to become one of the international hubs in terms of artificial intelligence, but you need to make sure you have your ducks in a row. You need to make sure you have the right rules, because as we said, it can go quite fast to develop these initiatives, but if the grounds and the ethical grounds is not clearly validated, it can backfire. So my point is, it's more about strategy than the availability of cheap sensors. Work on the strategy, you have the capacity, you have the vision, to do it, but do something which is not only based on technology, it's more based on ethics, principles, and processes.
Thank you. I know that there are a lot of questions from the audience, but I'm sorry, I can only take one question, and the rest you can ask our team speakers after the conference. So we need a mic here, please.
شكرا لك. طبعا المتحدثة معكم دكتورة سهير المهندي، أكاديمية في جامعة البحرين، نظام الجزئي، وزارة التربية والتعليم. في الحقيقة أردت أن أوضح حسب ما تفضل فيه الأستاذ المحاضر بأن ليس كل ما نراه حقيقي، وليس كل التطور تنمية ونهضة. حيث تفضلت بالسؤال قبل قليل، هل سترتفع نسبة المشاهدين للمباريات إذا عرفت النتيجة؟ وفي الحقيقة يعني الإجابة سوف تأتي بطريقتين. إجابة قد تكون نعم، مبنية على إذا عرفت النتيجة قد تكون هناك فئة تحتاج إلى المشاهدة لمعرفة التقنيات والمهارات التي أدت إلى حدوث النتيجة يعني التي حصل فيها الفريق الفائز أو الشخص الفائز بهذه النتيجة. وفئة أخرى لا يعني ترغب بالحصول على هذه النتيجة لأن المجرد هدفها فقط التعرف على هذه النتيجة. وما أردت أيضا أن أوضح له من جانب آخر فيما يتعلق بالبيانات وعلاقتها أيضا بالخوارزميات الإلكترونية، والتي ترجع بشكل كبير إلى علاقة الأفراد والمؤسسات والحكومات والأنظمة بالبيانات التي ترغب إلى إيصالها أو التعامل معها من خلال برامج الذكاء الاصطناعي، حيث أننا لا نستطيع اليوم أن نتعامل بالذكاء الاصطناعي والبيانات التابعة له إلا إذا نحن رقبنا بإيجاد بيانات يعني نستطيع من خلالها أن نعمل. وهذا يعتمد كما تفضلتم قبل قليل بوجود الأنظمة والقوانين والتشريعات وأيضا السياسات الحكومية في المجال الرياضي في هذا الشأن، حيث أن الذكاء الاصطناعي يتعلق بجانبين، فهناك الروبوتات وهناك الأنظمة الإلكترونية، وكلاهما يتعلق بالجانب أيضا الخاص بالبيانات وحجم هذه البيانات التي تدخل في الروبوتات للتحرك، وأيضا البرامج التطبيقية التي تكسبنا المعلومات. ولن نستطيع يعني هناك علاقة أيضا متوافقة ومتوازنة في عمل العقل البشري مع العقل الاصطناعي، إلى جانب أن ضرورة أن يكون هناك تكاتف فكري مع المهاري الفني في هذا الجانب ومن هذا المنطلق. وفي الحقيقة الذكاء الاصطناعي اليوم وما نتحدث عنه من خلال القمم ومن خلال المؤتمرات أغلبه جاء بشكل نظري، وما زال الفرد يعني لا يعلم بتفاصيلها التقنية بشكل دقيق، ولذلك العمل به في داخل
شكرا دكتورة على المداخلة. أعتقد بس لضيق الوقت نحتاج ناخذ. شكرا على المداخلة والكلام الطيب. We have just the last question here, and I thank you, Dalal. It's about how to move forward with the governance, integrating it in authorities such as, in Bahrain we have a powerful sports authority, and we moved from last year to this year a lot. I mean, you were there last year, Philip. And you've seen the discussions that is done. And how can we take this? And how do we build it within that? And what are the importance of these conferences for the future? If we could get 30 seconds of each of you before we wrap it up. I'll put my mic on for the closing. Thank you.
So we will start with Dr. Chen.
Yes, thank you. Actually, that's a very important question. So, how you integrate for the future of Bahrain for the AI in sports is that the legislation is very, very important, and especially ethical issues. So if you can able to sort out the ethical issue with collecting this sensitive data, and if you allow to do that, then you have this good data to produce good result outcome, and which I was telling you previously. And that's my summary. Thank you.
As we said, sport cannot be seen in isolation. Sport is a mirror of our society and a laboratory for the future. First question is, what are the objectives? Second question is, who are the stakeholders, who are the players you are going to work with? Based on that, you will define a series of activities in terms of infrastructure, and it can be a legal infrastructure, in terms of event, in terms of technology, and in terms of activity. So priority, the players, stakeholders, and the action map on the infrastructure, and again, it can be legal, it can be financial, technology, and activities. Everything needs to be seen in a consistent way, so it's useful and beneficial for the future.
As a member of the management committee of the Belgian Finance Center, I had the pleasure a few weeks ago in Brussels to meet a representative from Bahrain FinTech Bay. And I was talking with these guys, and it was very interesting to see how Bahrain is well advanced in terms of regulation development. In my point of view, AI development goes together with regulation. And indeed, there is an optimistic, let's say, point of view to take into account here during this panel discussion, is that you are very well advanced in terms of regulation understanding. I think in the region, this is regarding the financial sector, you are the most well advanced country in terms of financial regulation. It means that you have already an expertise you can reuse for other fields, other specialties. And definitely, this is something you can apply in the sports industry as well. So in my point of view, there is a hope to better develop AI, artificial intelligence, in the near future in Bahrain.
Yeah. For me, it would be more on the research side, because I'm from academia, of course. But I would say that for us, what really helped was to develop our knowledge inside the universities as well, like trying to fund PhDs that are working in artificial intelligence, and that can, in the long term, contribute to the country's growth. So this is what is happening right now in Belgium for us, and I believe this is a very good way to advance in really getting what is AI and what it can do for the country.
Thank you so much. So with this, we are wrapping up with our discussion panel. Thank you so much for this fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
والآن مع كلمة ختامية من الدكتور جاسم حاجي، فليتفضل مشكورا.
Can I have mic? It's on now. Yeah, thank you. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سمو الشيخ سلمان بن محمد خليفة، نائب رئيس هيئة العامة للرياضة. سعادة الدكتور عبد الرحمن عسكر، سعادة العضو الشورى، أصحاب السعادة، حضور الكريم، شكرا على حضوركم اليوم والاستماع إلى محاضرينا في موضوع جدا مهم اللي هو الذكاء الاصطناعي. أعتقد اليوم كان إجماع من قبل كل المتحدثين أن أهمية بدء في مشروع الذكاء الاصطناعي في مملكة البحرين يجب علينا نبتدي بجلب وأخذ البيانات عن طريق أجهزة استشعار لما ذكر الأخوة، that is collecting through sensors، أو حوسبة رؤية الحوسبية that is computer vision and smart cameras collecting data. وأعتقد هاي خطة استراتيجية بتكون من أهم مخرجات المؤتمر راح نعمل مع الجهات المختصة لكي نطور من النظريات ومن الأمور اللي تكلمنا عنهم للسنة الجاية إن شاء الله لأكثر تطبيقات في مجال الذكاء الاصطناعي في الرياضة. مو بشرط ناخذ خطوات بعيدة، لكن المهم أن نبتدي في تطبيقات الذكاء الاصطناعي. طبعا الذكاء الاصطناعي بدون بيانات مرة ثانية لا جدوى منه، والبيانات يجب علينا ناخذ بيانات على فترات متفاوتة، يعني نحن نسميه historical data أو بيانات التاريخية. لذلك أيضا استفادة من بيانات المتواجدة الأوبن سورس، بيانات المفتوحة، والمقارنة مع البيانات اللي عندنا لكي نبني على حلول متقدمة ويمكن نقدر نرتقي بالدول المتقدمة. طبعا دكتور يشهد ان احنا كنا الاول في المنطقة ان نعمل مؤتمر في الذكاء الاصطناعي في الرياضة الاول، يعني الاخوة في الدول المجاورة من بعدنا ب6 شهور اعتقد تكلمنا عنه، هم بدوا مؤتمراتهم في الرياضة. فمن ناحية المبادرات طبعا احنا سباقين في هالموضوع. وايضا اللي يعني خطوات القادمة في موضوع الذكاء الاصطناعي في الرياضة تركيز على اللي يمكن نتكلم مع بعض الأخوة على البارا أولمبيكس وذو الهمم، على أساس ناخذ هالخطوة لكل الأبعاد منه، يعني مو فقط على الرياضيين اللي يمارسون رياضات تقليدية. احنا من العام الماضي لهالسنة قدرنا نطبق بدايات من بعض الحلول في لعبة التنس، تنس الطاولة، وراح نطور في هالشيء. كانت أساساً الأخوة اللي طوروا في هالحلول فازوا بجوائز سمو الشيخ خالد بن حمد آل خليفة حفظه الله، اللي هو دائما يحفزنا من طريق الابتكارات والذكاء الاصطناعي في عدة فرص. مرة ثانية نشكركم ونشكر سموه على دعمنا وعلى حضور اليوم، وإن شاء الله أيضا الشكر للمتحدثين. I would like to just say a few words in English. I would like to thank you, my dear speakers, Dr. Chan, Dr. Anthony Badr, Felipe, for coming all the way to participate with us and share the knowledge that you had experience, whether it's in the universities, which we're going to implement it in the reality, or from your experiences. I think we are on the right track. As you said, Bahrain is on the right track. في الختام أود أذكر أن البحرين في مؤسسة أكسفورد إنسايت في عام 2022 احنا كنا الخامس عربيا من دول عربية والسادس 50 من بين 181 دولة عالميا، واعتقد في 23 راح نرتقي يعني مراتب أعلى. طبعا في حد ذاته التصنيف مو بالهدف إنما التصنيع، واعتقد هذا اللي نقوله. شكرا على حضوركم.
أما الآن يسرنا أن ندعو سمو الشيخ سلمان بن محمد آل خليفة نائب رئيس الهيئة العامة للرياضة، وسعادة الدكتور عبد الرحمن صادق عسكر الرئيس التنفيذي للهيئة العامة للرياضة، والأستاذ توماس جيمس روزانديش لتقديم دروع المشاركين في محور الذكاء الاصطناعي في الرياضة بقمة الرياضة البحرينية والتقاط صورة جماعية مع المشاركين. دكتور أنتوني تشوبا، باحث ما بعد الدكتوراه بجامعة لييج ببلجيكا. دكتور تشان يون، قائد الأمن السيبراني لمركز الأنظمة الفيزيائية السيبرانية بجامعة خليفة بالإمارات العربية المتحدة. السيد بدر بوسبات، رئيس منظمة AI Together، مستشار أول ومسؤول اتصالات في إيست نست. والسيد فيليب بلانشارد، الرئيس التنفيذي لفيوتشرس. المجموعة العالمية للذكاء الاصطناعي تقديم هدية تذكارية لسمو الشيخ سلمان بن محمد آل خليفة، نائب رئيس الهيئة العامة للرياضة، على جهوده ودعمه اللامحدود في إنجاح هذا المؤتمر. ندعو الآن السادة المتحدثين في محور الاستثمار في الرياضة والتقاط صورة جماعية. أولاً السيد فواز بن محمد. مستر ريكاردو أوليفيراس. مستر سيزار سانشيز. come on stage for a group picture. يسعدنا الآن أن ندعو المشاركين في دورة الحوكمة في الرياضة للتفضل بالتقاط صورة تذكارية مع سمو الشيخ سلمان بن محمد آل خليفة وسعادة الدكتور عبد الرحمن صادق عسكر. وفي الختام نشكر سموكم الكريم لتشريفكم عرضنا هذا، على أمل اللقاء بسموكم في ندوات أخرى بإذن الله. كما نشكر جميع الحضور والمشاركين على دعمهم ومشاركتهم الفاعلة، مع تمنياتنا للجميع بدوام الصحة والعافية. كما نرجو منكم التفضل لتناول وجبة الغداء في الطابق الثاني من الفندق، ودمتم في رعاية الله.
يسرنا الآن ندعوكم لتناول وجبة الغداء في نفس الفندق لكن في الطابق الثاني. حياكم الله جميعا. للأعضاء والإخوان المشاركين في دورة الحوكمة يرجى منهم استلام الشهادات في نفس مكان الدورة في الطابق التاسع. يرجى من الأخوة الأعزاء المشاركين في دورة الحوكمة استلام شهاداتهم من الطابق التاسع في نفس القاعة التي عقدت فيها الدورة. وندعو الجميع ختاما للتفضل وتناول وجبة الغداء في الطابق الثاني من الفندق.
Assemble.